Hey there. This is a quick tip on emotions. And there's a lot that's covered in the book. And I want to real briefly talk about some of the important things to remember, the important things to know and understand. So I am sharing my screen. Um, it's important to remember that emotions are nothing more than body chemistry, basically. We're big bags of chemistry and chemical reactions. And the emotions are the body interpreting things going on, or the brain interpreting things going on in the body, and the determining how to react. So that definition, and this is out of the book, the body's multidimensional response to any event that enhances or inhabits a person's goals, things that make your achieving a goal better, things that stand in the way of your goals. And we're not just talking about major life goals, these are any kind of goals that you're having. Our emotions are our response to it. And many people will say that we value our lives, we judge the value of our lives or the worth of our lives based off of our emotions, and particularly love, happiness, joy, those particular emotions, although there's a whole gamut of emotions out there, and we need all of them. What's really interesting is emotions are basically two parts. So the first part is the biological part. The mind interprets physical changes in the body and attaches meaning. And if you go back to the nonverbal discussion, the face is our most expressive form of emotional channel. So you can see anything in the world about us off of our face, especially if you know how to read micro expressions, right? So the brain is watching heart rate, body temperature, blood pressure, all kinds of things going on in our body all the time. So it's constantly monitoring and receiving all of this information. And then if you go all the way back to perception was select, organize, interpret. Well, the brain is doing that. Select, organize, and interpret. So that it's selecting what input to take from the body, and then it processes it, and then it says, okay, what's the proper reaction here? And it's a learned thing. Some of the emotions, if you remember back to nonverbal, 7 of the emotions are hardwired into us. Our faces express it no matter what language and culture you grow up in. Those 7 are pretty much expressed the same, but the brain still has to figure out, what is it? What do I have to do with it? So there's the biology going on in our minds. We get excited. We see somebody that we're really attracted to, and we get excited, and our heart rate goes up, and our body temperature pumps up. And we're talking minute, sometimes body temperature changes, but the body temperature goes up a little bit, and we start getting excited. Okay, the brain sees the physical heart rate go up, body temperature go up, and then it has to say, what does this mean? Because if you remember, we're built into this fight or flight reaction from way back when we were first evolving as humans. And so the brain's picking up, heart rate went up, blood pressure went up, body temperature's gone up. What does that mean? Do we need to run away? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? What is that? So that's the mental side. Our human traits figure out, what do all these body changes mean? Sometimes your heart rate picks up, blood pressure goes up, and it's attraction. You see somebody and you really like them. Other times your heart rate goes up, your body temperature goes up, your blood pressure goes up, and there's something horrible coming right at you and you need to run. And the brain has to learn how to figure out what is what. Am I happy here? Am I sad here? Am I scared here? Do I feel joy now? And so the brain, the cognitive side, figures out, what do all these things mean? And it's built off of figuring out the biology side, and also looking at our experiences, our past encounters with this type of person, or our past encounters with this type of event. We've had this type of a response, and that's the way it worked out well. So we try to recreate that, and the brain learns as it goes. And then we base meaning and depth and value on our lives based off of feeling love and joy. And the more of those we feel, the more value we have in our lives and that kind of thing. So it's a very interesting multi-step process, and it's learned. And that's why some cultures you get these emotions, but they're very stoic type cultures. England is a good example. They're taught not to express their emotions that well, even though all of the body signals are coming in and the mind's processing and says, hey, this is the time to be happy. Culturally, it steps in and says, but you don't need to express that. And in other cultures, it's, hey, you need to be happy, and they're just ecstatically happy. Southern Europe is very much that way. South America is very much that way. They're very emotionally expressive. And so there's a cultural part to it. And then there's the part that we pick up along the way from our biology and from our parents and that kind of thing. So it's important to understand that is what's going on in our minds, and it can affect how we actually behave in the long run. And what is the actual appropriate response to our emotions at a particular time when we're picking up these emotions and feeling them. And if you go back into, well, the early part of the book actually talks about the emotional intelligence, the concept or the idea of emotional intelligence. So that's the other thing I wanted to show you. Our emotional intelligence is one of the most important things you can have in success, especially in the workplace. Everybody knows IQ, and there's websites that measure IQ and all of that. That's a measure technically of how smart you are. That plays a very minor role in our success in our careers and our success in our personal relationships and that kind of thing. The bigger factor that comes into play is emotional intelligence, or the emotional quotient. And it's important to understand what's the appropriate response in a given situation, and how are you at being able to identify the type of emotions that you have and identify what is an acceptable response. Is it okay, in this situation to really be super happy and express it, or do I need to downplay it for now and I can express it later on my own time? Learning how to control your emotions, something may happen and it may make you very angry, but the proper emotional response in the context of where you are is not to get angry. And a lot of times our emotions take control and we react before we think, and we wind up in really bad situations. Higher emotional intelligent people realize real quickly, oh, I'm having this emotional response in my mind, but it's not appropriate for me to react in a certain way right now. And you get control of it. And that's a very important thing. So it's good to know, do you have emotional intelligence? And everybody really does. And are you able to recognize your own emotions as they're happening? Oh, this is starting to make me mad, or this is really making me excited. And can you recognize other people's emotions? And can you recognize in a conversation you're having with somebody, you're able to read all of their nonverbals and even their verbals? Can you pick up on maybe something you said has triggered an emotional response in another person? Can you identify that? And can you adjust for it to help them and to help your relationship and that kind of thing? So real quickly, there's a test, and I think I borrowed this from this textbook. You just answer these 10 questions on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being rarely ever and 10 being, oh, definitely every single time, what your response is to each question. And we're going to calculate out the emotional intelligence quotient. So the first question is 1 to 10. I think about and reflect on my emotions. So 1 is rarely ever do I do that. And 10 is I do it all the time. So think about where you are there. And it might not hurt to get a piece of paper out and write down, 1 through 10 and then the numbers later, because you're gonna need that. So the next one, I can express my emotions to other. Again, rarely as a 1 and definitely as a 10. And number 3, I'm gonna go a little faster than I would in face-to-face class because you guys can hit pause. I understand the causes and effects of my emotions, being able to react. Number 4, I use my emotions to improve my relationships. Number 5, I am able to express both positive and negative feelings. Number 6, I can accurately identify the emotions other people are feeling. Number 7, I know the difference between emotions and moods. Number 8, I can reorganize my thoughts on the basis of what I'm feeling. Number 9, I understand how emotions change over time. And 10, I can manage my own emotions effectively. So go through each one of those, give yourself where you feel you are on the scale from 1 to 10. And then to find out how this all comes up, we're going to add the numbers up. You probably already guessed that, right? So the best you can get is 100. The worst you could get is 10. And so add up each one of those numbers next to 1 through 10 from that survey. And the number you get is your emotional quotient, just like your intelligence quotient is calculated. And if you scored between 10 and 40, you're fairly low on the emotional quotient. You could probably work on your emotional intelligence, understanding for your own understanding your other people's emotions, being reactive to it, being more sensitive to what you say and how it affects other people. You could improve on that. Most people score between 41 and 70. That's the moderate, that's the peak if you had the bell curve out. And that means that you've got some good emotional intelligence, but of course you can always improve. And then very high emotional intelligence people score 71 or higher. And that means that you are already reaping the benefits of high emotional intelligence. And it should help you in your day-to-day interactions, and it should help you with your relationships. And especially in the working world, higher emotional intelligent people do better on a success rate. And usually people get promotions and raises and that kind of thing when they are seen as being not emotionally reactive, but they react properly. They don't get super wound up if something bad happens. They're very calm, cool, collected, laid back, all the time. And they have the appropriate response, and it's very leadership like. And that's usually a higher emotional intelligence person. So the only other thing I wanted to skip through is this sentence right here. This is a very important sentence. You can't make me angry. Only I can choose to be angry. This is one of those things that comes from high emotional intelligence. You are in control of your emotions. Yes, you're going to have things that are going to happen. They're going to cause you to feel certain ways. You can't help that. But what you can help is how you react. And you want to react properly to the relationship that you have. You want to react properly to the culture that you're in. As we go forward, we get into relationships and how good, deep, strong, long-lasting relationships work. A lot of it is how emotional you understand the emotions and you react properly for the person that you're in the interpersonal relationship with, whatever level it is, significant other, friends, workmates, close friends, family. How well something happens if you suddenly just have something happen and you just blow up and scream and shout and carry on, that has an effect on a relationship that's more negative than if all this happens and you think, okay, this is how I should react. And you react with a more intelligent, controlled response. then typically our long-term relationships last long because of that. So that's why emotions are so important. Hopefully that stuff helps you. There's a lot in that chapter, I won't lie, and hopefully this doesn't run too long, but I wanted to get a quick tip up on emotions. And if you got questions, shoot me an email or catch me in office hours. See you later.